Someone who I do know that makes videos about books and many other things is Austin's own Jared Henderson. Jared,
Hey,
how are you?
Mike, I'm doing well. How are you, man?
Good. I'm sorry that I didn't send you a link before. Horrible mistake on my end.
That's okay. I kept thinking, like, do I have it? I
It
was like,
probably
I can't. Yeah.
it's the same link every time. So
Oh, okay, cool. Then I'll
that
just save it now. Yeah.
also you have the most like cinematic setup of anyone that's ever come on the show. I
It's
would
all
say,
lighting, man. It's all just yeah. But I want to look
oh,
soft and
and it's good.
yeah.
I think, do we get is there a guitar amp over to your shoulder right now?
There is, yeah. But though
All
my
right.
guitar is like in a completely different room.
Ah,
Um,
well, I think I knew that you were a guitar guy, but then you referenced it in your most recent video.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
bought a I bought a Fender Mustang with that tech bonus.
Oh, see, you
So,
knew that question was coming, so you just got ahead of it.
yeah.
Really interesting, because I see that for anyone who's a guitar person. If you guys haven't seen it, Jared's most recent video is called "The Internet Keeps Getting Worse." Let's talk about why. Um, you reference getting your big fat life changing tech bonus buying a guitar, and then if you're a guitar person, you think to yourself, "What are we talking? Is this a Telly guy? Is this a Celeste Paul guy? But a
Yeah.
Mustang guy?"
Yeah, well, yeah, though I'll be honest, the best guitar I've ever owned. Well, there's like if I think about two great guitars I've owned, and I've owned like a lot of guitars, and I've
Mhm.
always been someone who was like owned one for a while and then sold it
Mhm.
before I got another one.
Yeah, that's
Um,
smart.
um, and the best guitar I think I've ever owned was a Telecaster. Um, which I feel like meant, and I got that when I was like 19. And it's like, oh wow, I was like meant to be a dad.
Is that how you know when you connect with a Telecaster and you're like, well, I gotta get someone pregnant?
Yeah, exactly. And the second best guitar that I've ever owned, and I've been thinking about getting another one, was actually a G&L. Have you ever had one?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. I've played
it's
one. I've not had one. I looked at them recently. Because GNL, again, we can just get guitar nerdy for a second.
yeah.
Was like the side brand of Leo Fender when
Yeah,
he
it was like after he
left
leaves
Fender. Yeah,
Fender, he like starts G&L, and that's why all the designs kind of look like
yeah.
it. But there's this one called the Fallout,
Hmm.
and it has a P90 in the neck position,
Hmm.
and then a humbucker in the bridge, but you can split it so it sounds like a single coil if you like pull a
Mm.
knob.
Uh-huh.
And I loved that guitar so much. I ended up giving that away at an old
That's nice of you.
because, well, it was like I lived in this uh apartment complex in Austin when I first moved here, and it was like during that massive blizzard in Texas
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. And one of the things that happened was like every other apartment in my complex flooded except for mine.
Oh
And there was
shit.
this like teenage girl who had like just bought her like my neighbor who had just bought a guitar like with her own money for the first time, and she was like
Oh,
devastated because literally like a water boiler
yeah.
exploded like right outside of her room. And so I ended up
Jesus.
giving it to her because I was like, one day I'll get like another one of these, and I keep like thinking about it. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that story would end with you just being a really good guy.
Yeah, that's
Um,
actually why I led you here the whole time.
Yeah, that was the long way around. You were like, I got to show the guitar amp because that'll trigger this thought in his brain, which will allow
Yeah,
me
yeah,
to end with this. Well, I have some broader things I wanted to talk to you about today, but I will say I really liked the recent video. It felt really different because I'll say this, it felt like you were kind of just shooting the shit, and I mean that in a
yeah,
positive way,
yeah.
but um, felt
It,
very, again, meant positively, kind of just
yeah.
like casual, like you're just kind of like thinking through some shit in the moment.
Yeah, it was barely scripted.
Okay,
And then
it
I
felt like
actually
that.
edited that one myself because I just didn't have time to send it to my
Uh-huh.
editor. So it was completely different than the sort of like tight script, lots
Yeah.
of text effects kind of thing that I've been doing a lot lately. But it felt good, and like seeing people just respond to it and being
Yeah.
like, "Oh wow." I mean, I don't know. I often think of like philosophy. There's a lot of like things if you want to talk about like what the value of it is, but I
Mhm.
think one of the primary values is like giving you the words to say something that you can already kind of recognize.
Yeah,
Like,
like
it
putting
gives you the
kind of,
vocabulary to make sense of your own experience,
yeah.
and it was like when I read Doctora's work, which was
Mhm.
the, stuff that was kind of, um, uh, like, about, like, the enshittification of the internet, and then when I put it I was like, "Oh, that makes sense of this," so I just, like, wanna share it with people because like, maybe you will, like, say, "Oh, wow, like, that makes sense. I now have words to make sense of my experience."
Yeah.
And so it was like a, "Hey, check out this cool idea," or whatever, cool idea I stumbled on.
That rules. Sorry, I had a thought about that video. Yeah, so I mean, I think yes, you articulated things quite well there. It does suck how much the internet sucks. I think the way you describe Google, especially, hits so hard these days, and I think
Mhm.
part of it is like the the enshittification runs up against the fact that consciously or unconsciously we've become so ingrained or so, I guess, addicted to certain aspects of what the internet does. I feel like Google's like ground zero for that, in as much as Googling things has been, I don't know, like it has replaced short-term memory. It has replaced
Yeah.
knowing where you like to eat in your neighborhood. It has
Mhm.
replaced asking friends where a good tailor is when you got to
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
your pants lengthened for a wedding or something
Mhm.
like that. And it used to be so incredibly functional in that way. And now, when looking for things, it doesn't give you what you want, or it gives you stuff that is so obviously crap or
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know you know advertised. And I guess you get in the video as well that Amazon does something similar. And again, like many problems and things we could say about Amazon, but when it worked the best, the function of it was like you needed a thing, it would direct you to the precise thing that you needed, often via a brand or supplier that you knew of, or knew that existed and was legit.
Yeah.
And now, like you point out in there, for so many things, you have to go down so many rabbit holes to
Yeah,
make
so it's
sure
like,
you're acquiring the right product or something.
let me skip the first 6 results because 'cause they're all sponsored. Let me go to the first
Mhm.
non-sponsored one, then let me try to, like, look at it and see, like, did they just spoof reviews? You know, did they find some way, to climb the rankings? It feels like so much of it was, like, this thing that served a purpose, right? Like, this thing that, like, did something for us, now, becomes, like, a hostile experience because it
Yeah,
actually in the name of, like, short-term profit, essentially. Yeah.
yeah. Um, to go, we all think about, or is the fact that you are making a video about the thing on a platform that is a part of the thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I mean, this is something I just am gonna have to wrestle with basically for as
yeah,
long as I'm on the internet. Yeah.
yeah. It is one of those things too that I think it'd be nice if there was an easy answer. But I was talking earlier today, so I'm working on a video. It's kind of like trying to do like a meta analysis or commentary on what it means to do philosophy. And I'll say philosophy very broadly construed, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
critical intellectual work
Mhm.
in a digital format that is content, whether that's YouTube or podcast or whatever. And some of the ways in which I think there are positives, and it does something very good in providing an alternative to the traditional uh, academic structures that are decaying and are inaccessible for a lot of people. But also it ties into a form and a logic that is this like enshittified
Yeah, yeah,
internet that we
yeah.
find ourselves so enmeshed in. And it really, I mean, one thing I was thinking about is like, it does feel like the platformification of it all is like a Russian doll, because an anxiety one might feel is like, oh, I make all of my stuff on this platform. What if the platform dies or they turn it
Mhm.
off? Like,
Yeah,
feels maybe silly to say, but there's people that built whole careers on Vine years ago, and then they
yeah,
just turned Vine off one day.
yeah, yeah.
I think with YouTube, we probably feel more confidence. You're not just going to turn it off, but then people do the thing where it's like, oh, well, that's why you got to have a Substack. That's why you got to have a Patreon or whatever,
Mhm.
which are also just platforms
Yeah.
that one can turn off.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so it's a
absolutely.
weird, like, existential digital thing undergirding all of this.
Yeah, at least with, the only thing I'll say about Substack now, I mean, if we wanna talk about platforms, we
Yeah, yeah.
specifically could, but one thing I like about them is that you just have access to your list.
Mhm.
So I can just regularly back up my subscriber list. So
Yeah.
if Substack was like, "Hey, we've decided you shouldn't be on here anymore for some reason," or, "Hey, we're shutting the platform down," or, "Hey, we're gonna throttle your views," I at least could leave in the sense of like,
Mhm.
and everyone who has subscribed to hear about me, right?
Yeah.
I could take with me. If you get banned from Twitter, you just lose all of your followers. right? Like,
Yeah.
if you get banned from YouTube, you just lose all your subscribers. And so
Mhm.
it's like, they have a complete control of the relationship between you and your audience as well, which is even stronger. I mean, it sounds so simple. Substack lets you download a CSV file with all of
Mhm.
the emails of your mailing list, but
That's a big deal.
it actually ends up being a really big deal.
Yeah. No, I got banned from Twitter right before my daughter was born. Um,
Nice.
and it was at the time, it was really it was actually it was the perfect time because the weird existential weight of not having access to my Twitter account, which felt way bigger than it was, it made me feel very silly in how much
Mhm.
I cared. Um, and for those wondering, I got banned because I retweeted. Remember when that guy put out that song about the rich men north of Richmond, the
Oh, yeah,
Oliver
yeah.
Anthony guy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think I literally just said, if this is what music is now, I'm going to KMS.
Okay,
And
yeah, yeah.
someone like reported it. And then it was like early in the Elon days.
Yeah, yeah.
And then one day, like 6 months later, I saw someone post somewhere like, oh, hey, if you got banned during this era, just appeal it now and they'll overturn it. Because I'd appealed like a billion times. And then I just
Mhm.
appealed one day and instantly had it back. And they said it was a mistake. But um, in that moment, it felt so terrible and like my life was destroyed. But then I was like, who gives a fuck? I got a human kid now.
Yeah,
But all
yeah.
that to say is like I felt a little bit of like what that feels like to have a part of your identity or brand or social realm of connectivity.
Or how you make your living.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Like, if
Uh,
you lose contact with your audience completely, you just don't have, like, access to it. Like, it's not like you and I have, like, we can't get unemployment if we lose our channels,
no, that's
right?
because it's not real.
Because we're not employed, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's all sort of, I don't know, um, the more that we allow these platforms to sort of control the relationship as well, it gives just them more leverage to then say, well,
Mhm.
if we treat you really horribly, what are you going to do? Leave?
Yeah. I mean,
It's like an abusive spouse who controls the bank accounts, right?
yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? You have nothing. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's kind of that mixture of like, the inshitification thing and the platform capitalism thing where there's not a lot of mechanisms that provide leverage in the other direction.
Mhm.
Because, for example, even if let's say you and I each found 10 other YouTube creators with like pretty big audiences in the similar space. And we had this crew of 25 creators who collectively, get however many millions and millions of views a month. And we all said, like, we're not going to stand for this anymore. And we showed up at YouTube, like they wouldn't give a fuck
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
it's almost like content is like water to an extent, and
Mhm.
people are going to turn on their platform and they will give them something to watch.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think even if Mr. Beast threatened to leave, I think they let him walk.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, Mr. Beast as an individual gets a ton of views.
yeah.
In relation to the platform,
Hmm.
he does not, right?
Yeah.
It's like even Mr. Beast is like a drop in the bucket. So
Yeah.
it would have to, and okay, let's say Mr. Beast leaves, and decides like he's going to protest it. 7 Mr. Beast copycats will arise, and some of them will take off, and they'll all get a tenth of the views, right? And then you just to add it up, and then suddenly it's like Mr. Beast never left, right? And so you are the one who has everything to lose. There, the platform basically never does when it's this big.
Yeah. And we've seen versions of attempts to, I guess, fight back or find mechanisms of leverage with the platform thing, with like the attempt to get workers' rights for like Uber and Lyft drivers. And
Yeah,
sadly, all of those attempts normally failed pretty
yeah.
aggressively, with a lot of money behind them. And now more and more. Do you guys have the self-driving things in Austin? I assume you do because
We
it's
do. We
Austin.
were the ones who got the Tesla ones too.
Okay, yeah,
It was in that area of Austin. Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
but we have like Waymo. Yeah.
yeah. We like just there's been Waymo in LA. It just came in my neighborhood the last few weeks,
Mhm.
and now they're everywhere. Um, but it's like that reminder that not only for a lot of these platforms and industries, they're very good at individualizing the work experience and making it to where no one has any leverage, while also working on mechanisms to have non-humans doing those things.
Yeah.
It seems though, if you read into the recent changes on YouTube with AI stuff, I've seen people posting about this, and it sounded like people were reading it through a way more hopeful lens.
Yeah, I think it was like it's like they're gonna ban AI content or something.
Yeah,
I think it's not quite like that. I don't really understand it. And frankly, when I saw it, I thought, well, like I don't make AI content, so it's not gonna
yeah,
matter for me one way or another. And my assumption is that the slop increases. Like slop never decreases.
mhm,
So regardless of what the
yeah,
policy is, they will just like find a way
yeah,
to get like when people figured out like, oh, I need to be, no one actually understands fair use law in on YouTube. Like they
mhm,
would, no one actually does. But they're like, well, I can steal clips from someone as long as I add my own voiceover. And so that's why you get like these annoying shorts then have like an AI voice that are like,
mhm,
this woman saw that like her daughter was drowning and so she jumped into the water. So
mhm,
and then it's just using someone else's footage. They'll just find a new way to get around that. Like they'll just find something else. I
yeah,
was impressed by the fact that movie clip channels are just so good at like flipping the
yeah.
perspective, like mirroring the footage every few seconds and adding like little shimmers and stuff in a way that like looks
They
so
go so
awful. It
hard
looks
to make it work.
Yeah, but like they found a way to get around it because they found out after under like 3 seconds nobody cares. So if we just
Mhm,
add up a bunch of 3 seconds that nobody cares, then nobody cares. So I guess what it is like, it's really hard for a platform to stop that kind of stuff. It's actually not in YouTube's interest to stop too much of it if
mhm,
people like it. They
yeah,
need to stop the stuff that people don't like that clogs feeds. But as long as the algorithm's good enough at getting you what you want, it's there. And I kind of put in my new video, the problem is people like that stuff. They like the slop. Like they like the AI reuse stuff or whatever. So
and that's what I mean. Do you feel like you get it at all? Because there's a lot of dumb stuff and bad
Mhm.
stuff culturally or aesthetically that I like can make myself get why people like. Some
Yeah.
like bad music,
Mhm.
I get it, or low quality food that's terrible for us that everyone eats. I kind of get it. Even some
Mhm.
bad TV. Do you feel like you have any sense of why slop content works and why people eat it up?
Yeah, it's well, one, I think that there's a substantial portion of the population, not like a majority, but just a big enough portion that doesn't know it's AI all the time.
Mhm.
That they just I think especially like older people just have a really hard time understanding that some of the stuff they're watching is obviously fake.
Yeah.
Um, and two, I think that it's kind of like with bad TV. This is one thing. I haven't watched like a network TV show in over a decade, probably.
Good for you.
This isn't because I'm particularly virtuous, but like you watch it, you're just like, what the hell is this, right? Like you
Yeah.
like you watch like a scene of NCIS or something. Like my mom puts it on at her house, and I'm like, what did you just watch? Like there was like a skit in the middle, like where they have like a little fun in the lab, and then it's like a gruesome murder scene again, and then
Mhm.
it's like two Mossad agents chasing after you for some reason. Like what just what this someone with schizophrenia wrote this. Like it had to be, but you're watching it, and like I can't understand it. And I think, well, the same people who really like to watch 7 episodes of NCIS every single night on cable also probably don't mind, like, the AI baby Tucker Carlson yelling at AI baby Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Um, though I guess of all of, like, the weird AI things, it might be, like, the AI politicians and media figures, like, yelling at each other that I kind of get the most. Because 'cause you're like, "They are big dumb babies." So
I
I like to
do
see
act
them
like
this
that.
way.
Well, is there anything when you were working on that video, and you talk about it a little bit, but is there any specific YouTube and shitification that you reflected on, or stuff that you realized that you hadn't thought of when you started using that framework to look at stuff?
Yeah, so I kinda I think one of the things that you can see only on the back end, so you've seen it, but God, I hope you've never done it because it's totally a scam,
Mhm.
is like when they'll say, "Hey, you could get more views if you sponsored your own video, like if you pay for it
Yeah,
to be," and that's like apparently good for if you're selling like products or something.
yeah,
But the idea is that they're pushing this on individual creators, and what that's turning it into is like it's like a pretend pay to win kind of thing.
yeah.
Oh, you're not getting enough views, just pay for this, right? Twitter and stuff does this too, but like
Mhm.
YouTube doing it felt particularly weird to me because they are actually really good at just getting people the content in front of their eyeballs that that they want to see. So like, why are we paying to manipulate that? I think that's a major one of them. I think that the move to integrate YouTube shopping into like absolutely everything. I'm sure you
That's
get
tough.
emails
Yeah,
like all the time that's like, you could be making even more money. Hey, Michael, don't you know that this month is Sephora month? And you're thinking, finally, I've been trying to get my skincare regimen,
it's
finally
all I
dialed
think
in.
about. Yeah.
And so like you're supposed to then start linking to more Sephora products, in there. And so that every video is going to have a little thing at the bottom that says, here are the products that appear in this video. Um, that's not just good. That's not just bad for users, but I also think it's bad for creators because they're kind of incentivized to turn more into like product placement
Yeah.
things. Yeah. And
Well,
so
again,
I think it's those kind of monetization pushes do trouble me a lot.
and that's really tough because I think there's already a lot of implicit things about the format that creators already have to contend with in terms of not just inadvertently making things that fully serve the algorithm. And I think
Mhm.
it's that
Yeah.
that constant balance of like, how do you do things that you are aware will help people watch your thing without just replicating the type of concept like content that best serves what they want from you. And it seems like further integrating products and ads into that makes it even harder because then it's
Yeah.
basically like YouTube saying like we are a mechanism for not only attention but e-commerce, and your job is to provide us the platform to do that thing, and we will
Mhm.
reward you for doing that well.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. And I think, like, I don't think people know unless you've done it how much money there is in affiliate marketing. Like you can make a lot of money with affiliate links. I used to make, well, I took Amazon affiliates out of my videos when I
Mm.
sort of went on my anti-Amazon crusade.
Yeah, you kind of had
And
to at
I,
that point.
and yeah, exactly, right. And I used to make tons of videos where I just listed books. I don't make those nearly as often, but it used to just
Yeah,
be like 7 books I like, and then people would click on the links.
yeah.
Do you want to take a guess at like how much money I would make passively from Amazon like per month?
Oh, see, I would think not a lot at all.
I was making probably on a bad month $500, but up to like $1,000 a month from
Whoa,
those Amazon
just from
links.
people clicking links and things?
Yeah, because then you
I
get
had
like the whole
no
session, and so
idea.
yeah, and so and so turning it down, like I ended up like giving up a decent amount of money, like by doing this, and so uh imagine now if you're someone who caters to this, like you make lifestyle
Mhm.
content and you can show off 7 different products and you can say, but you got to
Yeah.
buy 3, just think about how much money they can make. But then ask yourself, aren't the incentives all wrong for the user who then, or like for the viewer who doesn't want to necessarily be sold anything? And hey, it's not an ad if it's just them saying, I use this. By the way, there's a link in the bio. It's not like it's an ad. So yeah.
That's tough. Well, here I'm gonna pivot slightly because there are a few questions I want to ask you that are related to this video I'm working on. But of course, even if I wasn't, I'd be curious on your thoughts on this. But it all applies. I'm gonna awkwardly though ask you to pivot in a positive way. And you did say something positive earlier, so maybe there's a way to build on this.
Yeah.
But I am wondering, as you continue to make stuff and continue to be a person that uses your philosophy background to create content, what is it that you feel is the most like positive or hopeful about the work you're doing? You mentioned before that idea of like giving people concepts to understand stuff. So maybe it's a version of that. But I'm just curious, like, what is the creative upside and the things that feel good
Mhm.
about doing the sort of stuff that you do?
Well, um, I certainly have been really encouraged by the fact that I hear from a decent number of people that say, "Hey, I watched your videos and I started reading philosophy, right, on my own." For a long time that was like my number one goal. If I could get people off that and to like to start reading stuff on their own. Or I started reading a book and I haven't read a book in 10 years. There are a few people that reached out to me and said, I went back to school to study philosophy because of you."
Mhm.
When I read that, I'm like, I don't know if that's the right choice, but good for you. Um, uh, and so I, but that's like what they do when they're not on the platform. I guess like what I'm saying, thinking about, or the positives I see when I try to make stuff is like, can I show people that there's like a more interesting way of looking at some problem? Can I show them that the like some problem that you're talking about actually goes a little bit deeper than you would expect? That's what I'm trying, like, really trying to aim for. Like, I don't a lot of some of my not a lot, but some of my videos, I don't think you would look at them and say these are obviously philosophical. Like
Yeah.
my videos about like reading or something like this, like why everyone stopped reading, this from like a year ago, but like where's like the philosophy? Well, I don't like quote any philosophers there or something like this, but the kind of attitude I'm trying to bring to that video is like this problem that everyone kind of laments. Let me break it down a little bit further, go a little bit further back in history, show you that there's something else going on. There were a lot of people who watched like the first 5 minutes of that video and said he hasn't even talked about phones. And I'm like, well, don't worry, the phones come up, right? But I'm saying
Yeah.
that it's more interesting. People want the easy explanation. I have a video that's going to come out, I hope at the end by the next couple of days, um, and it's already on Nebula. So if people
Mm.
watched it, they would have seen it. But
Yeah.
about it started off with that New York Magazine article about everyone cheating their way through college
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
using AI, and I saw that you did a thing about that,
Yeah.
and I was like, but let's go like a little bit further. And it turns out there's this philosopher named Liam Kofi Bright.
Uh-huh.
You might have seen him on Twitter and stuff a couple of like years ago. I don't think he's on there
Yeah.
anymore. I think he went to Blue Sky,
Uh-huh.
but he um he has actually done some really interesting philosophical work on like why academic researchers commit fraud. And so I wanted to say, like, can I link this thing about students cheating with AI
Mm.
and tell this story that then gets you to academic frauds and like the motivations behind academic fraud? Because actually, if you think about it,
Yeah.
research fraud is something that's really hard to make sense of. This is one of the points that Liam makes in his papers and talks a lot, which is like if you wanted to get rich committing in science, academic research fraud is not the way to do it. You
Yeah.
would just like go to like industry and you would go make the acid that somehow turns the bombs into like mega bombs. You would do work on something like that. Or you would work in advertising if you were a psychologist. So why is it that these people go and get academic jobs and then commit research fraud? And he has like this whole theory that kind of tries to explain it. And it's like really interesting. And you can tie into this large narrative about how you have to think about the incentives that you set up in your institution to then get the right kind of behavior. So students are responding to certain kinds of incentives about the degradation of like the degradation of education and sort of the value of education, and professors are too, just in different ways. And like that's like the way I was trying to think about it through that video is to show that like there's something deeper, and that's what I try to bring. And I think if I can help cultivate that attitude, like there's often not an easy answer to something. It's often a little more complex. And if I can show you that in 12 minutes, imagine what you could do if you spent 2 hours reading about it. Right?
Yeah. That and what you just said and like how you described it that way makes me think of. So I talked to this literary theorist recently, Anna Kornbluh. I don't know if you've ever read her work. She's at University of Illinois, Chicago, and does sort of
Did you
like,
write the immediacy book?
yes.
Okay, I
Um,
know of it, but I haven't read it.
yeah. So I talked to her about that book. It came out like a year ago. And talk about a book that does a really good job of articulating like a thing that we feel, but putting concepts to it. But what she gets into via a lot of art theory and cultural analysis is the way in which so many aspects of modern culture create these immediate responses from us, so that when we see a thing, we have an immediate affect or emotional response. And that's what we are intended to have. That's what we're used to having. What we don't have is a lot of space for mediation.
Mm.
And of course, when that happens, we're able to just kind of take things for what they are. And often the logic of consumerism and sort of capitalist media culture is just replicated in the culture that we're consuming. And I think with what you're describing, I think there's even a way that we do that when like we read an article on a thing and we just have the immediate response of, well, that's it. Like the article on AI cheating said that it's bad for X, Y, or Z reason, or it sort of emotionally appealed to me because I want to feel like AI is bad, or I want to feel like Gen Z kids are lazy or whatever, rather than having the mediative space to think about like structurally, why is this happening? Like you said, what are the incentives there? And is there a universe where Gen Z kids aren't just little monsters?
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. My wife just let my puppy into the
Oh my
my
God.
office,
I
and
was
so I'm
waiting
sorry.
to ask about this puppy. Yeah, it showed
Yeah,
up at the end of your recent video. That was the
yeah.
most retention editing thing I've ever seen in my life. Every video now, you should start, hold the puppy up, and say, and stick around to the end.
Yeah, exactly.
For,
I can give you little updates on how fast he's been growing and stuff.
oh my
When I
God.
finally record this niche video that I've been working on, I was talking about this niche video last time.
I know this thing. Every time I talk to you, this is like your white whale.
And I think I want to be playing with this guy's name is Apollo. Like, I want to do a segment where I like put a lav mic on or something, and I'm like, I'm gonna try to explain the death of God in 5 minutes, like while I play with this puppy.
Please do that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you got a new puppy right before a new human's coming. That's how you're supposed to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm all for like cramming the suffering in. Put it all together. Don't spread it out. So
I had this conversation with a friend last night about the weird advantage it seems of having twins is you probably have a really terrible first 6 to 12 months, but then you just got 2 kids and you did the whole thing and you did it one time and now you just have 2 kids.
I desperately wanted twins because like my wife and I kind of knew we wanted 2 kids.
Yeah.
I think after 2 we were done. And I was like, wouldn't it be great if we just had twins? Like it'll be really awful.
And I'm sure she was like, yes, that would be great to have 2 humans inside my body. I was talking about this with a friend who was a guy as well, being like, we say all this against the backdrop of we would not want to have 2 humans living inside of us.
Exactly. And so anyway, so we have we're sort of packing in because like my son's 2, like I think our kids are the same age.
Yeah.
My daughter's due in September on September 1st.
Oh, man.
And so we've got the puppy and it's like, let's just be miserable for a little while. I'm finishing my book and I'd like to
amazing.
I'd like to get it done or get more of it done.
When you had your first kid, were you still working in tech?
I was, yeah.
Actually, well, go ahead.
It was great because my old tech job, who, I mean, I hate that company for many reasons, but one advantage was that I had 6 months of paid leave when my son was born.
Amazing.
Which is just like by American standards, like unreal. Even by like tech standards where the benefits are usually pretty nice, unreal.
Yeah. I got 3 months, not as good as 6 months, but still feels pretty awesome. I mean, what is that like being self-employed now, having a kid? Are you kind of like planning around it financially or kind of figuring out ways to make that work? If that's a bummer to talk about, you don't have to. But...
No. I mean, the truth is, I'm not like dying for money or something right now.
Yeah.
But I am not able to take off an entire month of work.
Yeah.
Like it just wouldn't work. Especially if I weren't doing stuff on YouTube, I took a month off YouTube, maybe I could make that work. But I would need to be writing because I have a deadline for my book. The good news is that my wife's mom and dad are going to be staying. Actually, her father's been visiting like for the summer, and
you had to get him those slippers.
I had to get him those. Someone called me on the comments. They're like, I feel like you bought those because you wanted your father-in-law to have something to wear. Like my father-in-law's Chinese and doesn't wear shoes in the house and doesn't want to be barefoot. And like my wife's like, we have to treat him well since he's our guest. And so it's like that's why I bought him the damn slippers, guys.
I've seen people be normal. I just saw that and was like, oh, Jared sounds like a good son-in-law.
Yeah. Right. Like he's an extended guest. Anyway, but her father's been here and her mom's coming in September, like at the beginning of September. And basically the reason they're doing that is so that like my wife can sort of be primarily taking care of the new baby. They're going to essentially cook all of our meals and like help take care of my son so that I still have like a good amount of work. And they basically like, they're like, we just know that Jared's not in a position where he could take off. And my wife's been a stay-at-home mom for a couple of years. She's doing that for the first few years and then wants to go back to work. And so it's just like, they're just sort of pitching in. I mean, I'm incredibly fortunate and like thankful that we could sort of have this like family effort. At least for the first couple of months.
Well, no, I actually it's something we're kind of thinking about potentially having another kid. And that's like a thought I have had because it's like, oh, last time we had a kid, worked for a company, was able to take time off. Now, obviously, similar thing. Would likely have to rely on some in-law stuff as well. Although
exactly,
I don't think my mother-in-law would let me buy her slippers because she has really nice taste and she probably wouldn't like whatever I got her. So I guess that's a good thing there. Where let me ask you a couple more things and continue to play with was it Apollo you said?
Oh yeah, Apollo.
All right.
The reason why, by the way, is that my wife says that my son is like Dionysus. in the way that he acts, and so we needed Apollo to sort of balance things out for us.
That really fleshes out what I imagine your extended universe to be like. So that's
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So you said some positive stuff there. How do you navigate? And again, I don't think there's any good answer here.
Mhm.
The contradiction between what we could say are like the aims of philosophy, and I mean philosophy as like a broad method, kind of like you described earlier in your videos on reading and stuff like that. But how do you navigate the tension between maybe that sort of philosophical telos and what we know the ultimate end game of this platform is?
Yeah. Yeah, I think of myself as like a virus inside of YouTube. Like
Uh-huh.
I have to like because it's really a platform that's like optimized for like gaming and entertainment
Yeah.
creators or like, and I have to like play just enough of that. I have to like hijack those cells just enough to then like inject myself into it. And like but like not so much that it kills the host. And so um that's how I think about this. Um One of the things
So
I've been trying to do is in addition to sometimes, putting out like a 15-minute video that's kind of a think piece sort of style, very brief video essay, is doing these longer philosophy explainers. The funny thing is I was talking about the Nietzsche one for so long, and in between while working on the Nietzsche one, I have almost finished editing, like my editor's finishing it up, an hour-long video on Plato's Republic. And like that I'm going to drop next month.
yeah.
And it's just like, here it is. I even got like an animator to do some very light animations for some of like the myths in Plato's Republic.
Oh shit. Yeah.
They're not going to be like super in depth or something, but they're
Yeah.
going to at least kind of help it illustrate things. And it's like, here is like 60 to 75 minutes just about Plato's Republic. And that video I know will not do well at first. It won't
Yeah.
take off at first but my hope is that it will just like exist long enough that it will do well. Enough people will see it. I've done that before with Stoicism and with Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. So I figure like just do that, and then over time it will build, and then people will be like, oh, Jared kind of hooked me originally because he talked about cheating in academia or this other, this stuff about attention spans, which I think is a topic actually that could be very philosophical if you do it right. And then he showed that he has like the goods and that there was something worth like listening to, almost like a podcast, because it's 75 minutes about Plato's Republic.
Mm-hmm.
The script for that video was nearly 12,000 words, I think. Yeah. And it was the result after leading a 3-month like read along of it on Substack, where I wrote 20,000 words about the Republic in the course of like that read along. And so then I just turned that into like a 12,000 word script. I even hired a voice actor, a guy who does some like indie audiobooks to do voices for Cephalus, Glaucon, Adeimantus, and Socrates at various points.
Oh, this is a whole ass production.
Yeah.
I'm excited. You said that one's next month?
Next month. Yeah. My editor sent me an email today. He's like, I'm so sorry I haven't sent it back to you. And I'm like, this is the longest thing I've ever sent to you. Like, I get it. It's going to take a little bit longer. Yeah.
I'm going to make a 9-hour response video why Jerry Henderson doesn't understand Plato.
Yeah. Who knows, man? That might be right. This was my first time like really close reading the Republic.
Yeah.
And then turning into, but my thought is like, I'm probably in the top 1% of people on the planet. And that's like not that hard to do when you think about the scale of this, when it comes to like understanding Plato. It turns out within that top 1%, there's a huge difference between like that and the top like 0.1%.
Yeah. That's a lot of Greek stuff. I feel like that in general. Like it's not that insane to understand the basic philosophical contours of the text. But then if you want to get into it, you can get into it.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I understand that I should not be like read or like listened to as like the definitive interpreter of Plato here, but it should be like, here is me like doing my honest best with some competency to like give you a guide to it. I'm calling it like Plato's Republic, an in-depth guide. Yeah. The idea is like you could then go and read Plato's Republic for yourself in the same way that I did this with like the Nicomachean Ethics. Unfortunately, the Nicomachean Ethics I've read probably 7 or 8 times at this point. So when I made a video on that, it was like, I've got a view of the Nicomachean Ethics. With the Republic, I admittedly am coming with a little bit less expertise, but
oh, that's awesome. But I think sometimes there's like a value in making stuff like that when you don't, hey Apollo, when you don't know too much, or you don't come in with like too much of a POV, because then you get to work through it in a way that mimics or like represents what your audience will ideally be doing as well. Like I sometimes think about, I mean, I remember when I first started like teaching, I was very intimidated because I would have to teach stuff sometimes. When I was in grad school, like there was courses we just like had to teach. We didn't get
Yeah,
to
yeah,
come up
yeah.
with the curriculum. Where like some of the stuff I would know well, and some of it would be like, holy shit, I have to learn this enough to teach it. And one of my professors was like, you just got to be like one step ahead. You just got to know a little more than they know so that they
Exactly.
can follow your lead. And I was like, oh, it's not faking it. Like, no, that's what many of us do. So just like
Yeah, yeah,
stay
yeah,
one
yeah.
step ahead. And often I think it actually, for some of those topics, I feel like I ended up being a better and more engaging lecturer on the things that I was learning in the moment because I
Yeah.
had that like enthusiasm and initial curiosity as well.
Like I ended up going down like a minor rabbit hole to just like wonder like why does Plato use so many myths in the Republic
Mm-hmm.
when the Republic when Socrates wants to ban poets from the city on the grounds that they're liars.
Mm-hmm.
So like why are myths okay but poems
Mm-hmm.
aren't? And that ended up being like a real like thing I wanted to think about, and I kept kind of trying to bring into the video a little bit. And I don't know if like experienced readers of the Republic actually care that much about that particular issue. Hey buddy. Hey. Um yeah, he's like very much in puppy face. But anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know. And part of this, I looked at the secondary literature and I found people who are like, I'm going to write an article about the myths of the Republic. And you couldn't find that many about them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, especially about the myth of Ur. And then all of those articles start with like, philosophers have very rarely commented on the use of myth in the Republic. And like, this is my attempt to do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, apparently I'm the idiot here who cares about this or something. But, I thought it was like interesting enough, and I think it made for parts of it, an interesting video. So
I'm excited with that. Everyone, get ready to watch that one. Let me ask you this real quick then. With the video essay, okay, so this is a question maybe about like the video essay form and
yeah,
YouTube in general. Or are you familiar with Paulo Freire's banking model of education?
I am not. No.
Okay, he's the dude who like pedagogy, the oppressed, and one of his like critiques of the educational system that he's talking about is that it operates via a model where the teacher is like the subject and the student is the object, and the role of the teacher is to deposit knowledge into the like intellectual bank account of the student, and that it kind of like replicates a sort of market logic where knowledge is this thing that someone else puts in your head, and obviously that's very unsocratic in a number of ways. He has an alternative to
For
that.
one, all the knowledge is already there. We're just remembering what our
Dude,
souls forgot, man.
easy,
But
easy. Just think hard enough about it. But I think it's one of those things, and this even relates to, I think, elements of like why that Plato video will over time do well, is that what YouTube via Google wants is a platform where people can ask questions and get answers. So
yeah,
like there's going to be people in the future that are like, what's the deal with Plato's Republic? And ideally it shows them your video. But I think that creates a problem to an extent of how do you like make stuff that is already existing within that model that doesn't just replicate the mechanism of you are using a perceived authority to give someone knowledge that they can just take and do whatever with, rather than like creating a circumstance where you are giving them tools to think for themselves, to be inspired for themselves. And like I think I was thinking about this in the context of, there's language, I need to find the exact passage, where Kierkegaard talks about the role of the teacher being to almost like destabilize the student so that they're thinking of things anew and thinking of things in a fresh way. So I'm just wondering like how you think about that when it comes to making stuff.
Yeah, so I think part of it is one, if you want to like actually show your process a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I like to point this out sometimes, like, oh, I really wanted to make this point. I'll even say this sometimes, like, it would have been great if I could have made this point, and I tried, and it turns out I couldn't because it's wrong. And then like show them like how I got to the conclusion that it's wrong, or to show them that sometimes like the things that are being deposited, like you were saying, are false. I think this is a big deal. I did a video on the literacy crisis recently, and one of the things I did kind of near the end of that video was talk about how there's this website called the National Literacy Institute that has a bunch of statistics in it
Yeah.
that are basically bullshit. Like they made them up. They've conflated a bunch of surveys together and they misrepresent them. And if you do that, it's like, and I've seen other YouTubers just parrot that stuff because it's put on a website that is supposed to look authoritative. Though if you kind of look at it for more than 10 seconds, you realize maybe something's up. And I feel like introducing that later in the video. Now you could have made a video like this, like the people who are lying to you about literacy, like everyone's lying to you about literacy.
Yeah.
That might have been a video to make, right? Not necessarily the video I want to make, but to show them in the process. Like I wanted to understand this problem. And then I found someone who, in my attempt to understand it, actually would have misled me. And that like kind of shows like, hey, you have to practice this kind of stuff about how you, you have to practice these sorts of techniques as you're trying to figure things out for yourself. In the longer form, like philosophy explainer videos, some of the things I say is there's a tension here in the text and I don't know which way to go. And I'll just say it sometimes. Like, where would you go here? Because it seems like, did we have like a contradiction? And I think showing that sometimes, just like showing your own uncertainty or showing like a place where you're not sure what interpretive path you would want to take is really nice. I think that the thing that has annoyed me about YouTube philosophy in general, right, is there are a lot of channels and then commenters who I think sort of reciprocate, where they think like if you say it with enough confidence, it shows that you've read it better and that you've read more of it. And the truth is, someone put out Amber Frost rule here, but yeah, everyone is lying about how much they've read. That's almost certainly true. Everyone's lying about how much they understand, almost certainly. And they are, I think, in large part kind of imbibing a certain interpretation of certain figures and then just repeating it and hoping that nobody kind of calls them on it. And if they do, you can just say, what, you don't understand Nietzsche or something? I mean, Nietzsche is the one that's in my head about this because there's so many people who like
people do with Nietzsche though.
Will confidently tell you what Nietzsche believes. And I've had people tell me like, if you believe this about Nietzsche, then you should have read this other book that would show you like. And then I was like, well, I did read that book, and they're like, well, then you clearly didn't understand that book because you would have agreed with it if you understood it, which is like my favorite rhetorical move. Like if you understood it, you would agree with it. I don't know. This kind of crazy overconfidence is something that, I mean, basically infects like every area of our lives. And I don't want to say like what this means is we all have to be like nice moderate skeptics. It's just to like recognize the fact that like a lot of time people will overstate like how much confidence they should have. They are overconfident or they're faking it. There's like one of those two. And I like to model a little bit of that. Humility sounds aggrandizing, but a little bit of that like self-skepticism, you might say. In the stuff that I do.
No, but that's important. And I do think, and again, it's just something I've been thinking about a lot recently. And yeah, like I agree. There's like a sort of, there's like an overconfidence in presentation that I imagine is partly motivated by the platform itself. Because of course, if you make something that's like, why no one gets this, or why I only understand this, or why everyone's wrong about X, that rewards that sort of thinking. But then it creates things that are like, I guess, potentially an interesting performance of someone else's own perceived intelligence that doesn't really do anything else for you unless your whole goal is to just like agree with them. And it doesn't really teach you a lot about how to read text, do philosophy, or think philosophically. And like recently I have a friend, shout out to my buddy Dave, who is still in academia and has been like helping me work on the channel a little bit since I'm, have enough to pay some people to work on stuff. And it's very funny to see someone who spent a lot of years in academia see some of these videos and some of this discourse, because it seems insane to them. And we were literally talking today about how in academia, it's not uncommon to like give a paper where you present a specific reading of a figure, and maybe someone sitting right next to you has a drastically different reading of that figure. And it just creates the means of like discussion and mutual critique, and maybe you think through some stuff together. But it wouldn't be the instance that in a formal academic setting with people who took this shit really seriously, that if I gave a paper and said Kierkegaard thinks X and someone thinks the opposite, that they're like, you are a fucking idiot. And you
Yeah,
clearly,
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
occasionally there's like a person like that.
yeah.
But it's kind of not conducive to what it means to like think about text and think about text over time
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
like do philosophy.
Especially for some figures. Like, Kierkegaard comes to mind because he has so many personas,
Mhm.
but also Nietzsche. Like, if you think you've read a couple of Nietzsche books and you have now figured out, like, the definitive interpretation of Nietzsche, um, I just don't know what is going on with you. Like, I actually I don't know because they're such strange text. They pull
Mhm.
you in so many different directions. They contradict themselves, but sometimes
Mhm.
they're doing it playfully. But other times you have to wonder, like, did they really just make a mistake? Like, there's so much weirdness in those books. There's so much weirdness in those texts to say, like, well, of course, it reduces down to this, and it's like, I don't know, it's the will to power, right? That
Mhm.
was a very dominant way of interpreting Nietzsche. A way that I'm very partial to comes from this book about the affirmation of life. That it's actually
Mhm.
the entire Nietzschean project is the confrontation with and sort of going through nihilism.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
understanding that we've reached nihilism. It sucks, but the only way out of it is to go through it and then to arrive at something new at the end. But you have to do a lot of work to show, like, why that's the dominant reading and, like, how to make sense of some of the other
Mhm.
text. Um, and it involves drawing themes from many different parts of his corpus and also asking, did he ever change his mind over, a 30-year writing career or something?
Mhm.
Who possibly, who would have thought? So there's just so much complexity, and I guess uh my natural response to that much complexity is to go, I don't know. It's to start shrugging more.
Mhm.
And that attitude, though, does not play well on platforms.
No, plays
That
very, very
attitude,
poorly.
yeah, exactly. You need to be loud and you need to be confident and you need to be able to put things as authoritatively as possible. And that's what people don't want. They don't want that. They feel like you're wasting their time.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things too where I imagine that like you or I, have like a core audience who, if we are like, I actually don't know, are like, that's cool. I appreciate that. But yeah, for the casual viewer, the person who's just coming through, they're like, no, I want the answer to the thing. In the
Yeah.
same way, if someone asks like Google, what's the best Thai restaurant in my neighborhood? And Google says to them, like, I'm not sure. Like, let's step back and really think about what Thai food is. Like, should we break this
Yeah.
down into further
Yeah.
regions? Like, maybe
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
like Thai food in the first place. It's like, shut the fuck up. I just want you to tell me the thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. This is why when I do these kind of philosophy explainers, one of the things I don't do is I feel like they have to be long enough in the sense
mhm.
of um, because if it's too short, it presents it as if, like, I have distilled the essence
Yeah.
of this thing. And if I can explain Nietzsche to you in 15 minutes, I have, like, seen the essence of Nietzsche's philosophy. And now you'll get it because I've given
Yeah.
you, like, the secret code to reading it or something. And I don't want to, like, I don't want to ever present myself like that.
Mhm.
And so it has to be slow sometimes. There was this, like, phrase I heard. I don't remember what it was, but it was something about um, that sort of, like, middles of videos are and middles of movies are like the price we pay to just get people to no, endings of movies are like the price we pay to get people to watch the middle. Like, the
Mhm.
middle is where the interesting stuff is, but that's also
Yeah.
where everything slows down and gets complicated. And I
Mhm.
feel like that often when I'm making videos, like, I have to get you to an interesting place at the end so you feel like it was worth it to go with me on this middle journey. Um, and then because the middle journey is where all the weird stuff happens.
Yeah. No, I was having a conversation with that same friend who's in academia today. He was helping me like outline a video and I was kind of explaining like, okay, at the beginning, we really got to do some stuff. We really got to get a little zany at the top because if we can get people to pay attention to that, they'll stick around. But
Mhm.
hard to kind of look at stuff that way. Man, I had this really good like final follow-up question I was about to ask you. Like really good. Like something that would have really, I think, shaken you to your core, really affected the
Yeah, yeah,
audience.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
now I can't remember what it is. Oh, it was this. Wasn't a question, more of a comment. But I was thinking about this a little bit from like I started doing a reading group on my Patreon, and the way I'm doing it, which is kind of how I like to teach, is kind of like work through a text and talk about it.
Mhm.
And I like doing that because I think when I have the text on screen and I'm showing you the thing, I think it creates the sense of there are other ways to read this thing, but I am reading a thing this way in conversation with the text. So like you kind of know I'm not just pulling shit out of my ass because we're reading the text together. But of course, there are ways that you could look at the same text and pull it in a different direction, and that's okay as well. It's kind of like why I do like having, you know, primary text or key text at the heart of things, because it does kind of pull it back to like we might disagree on how we are interpreting this thing. We might pull it in different directions, but I think keeping it grounded sometimes avoids like bullshitty tangents.
Mhm.
But I guess then it still does the same thing you talked about, where someone just says, "No, it's this way," and if you don't understand that, it's because you're an idiot.
Well, the good news is if you're doing it like really close, like we're sticking to the text,
Yeah,
you can almost find like you can almost always find the passage that complicates what they would say.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and so their overconfidence ends up coming from not respecting the text or reading it closely enough.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
and I
like
think yeah,
it,
that I think that's helpful, right?
yeah, and I think too, like part of this plays into like the worst or one of the worst sides of YouTube philosophy things are when important and useful ideas are shared and expressed as like weapons to be used in very dumb debates. And I think that's like another thing that has happened is like people want to use philosophy as a tool not based in like curiosity and a desire for understanding in the good life, but as like a weapon.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that is bad, and it
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
really like bad downstream effect. And it seems
I
like maybe that culture is waning a bit. I don't know. I hope it is.
yeah, so I think that's partly I have no like grudges against her. I think it might be part of like kind of the ContraPoints era of this, where it was
Mhm.
like seen as like philosophy. What happened was like it was done in long cultural analysis video
Yeah.
essays. Also someone else mentioned like debate bro culture. That's another version of this. That
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
um um where it was like I'm gonna take down Jordan Peterson or something, right? And it was like I'll use this, and I understand it. There is some value to doing it, but what happened, and so this isn't really just about ContraPoints, is like that became like the dominant way of doing philosophy on YouTube or any kind of critical thinking. It became like the problem with
Mhm, mhm.
essays, like that title or um whatever it was like I'm going to like show why these people don't understand something and like why they're big dumb idiots. And might also be frankly, I mean, don't get me wrong. I used to listen to this podcast. I don't listen kind of like
Mhm.
the sort of like Chapo influence on like of political
Yeah.
discourse
Yeah.
where basically it's like you prove you're smarter by being ironic at just like the right times.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I've been there, man. I do like I've done it too.
There's
But
something very fun and
y-
attractive about it at times.
yeah. But eventually serious thinking does actually require a certain amount of like sincerity,
Mhm.
um, which is it's very cringe, I think, as people say now. So
Yeah.
you have to
I
be
think
okay with like embracing the cringe a little bit.
yeah, I mean, sincerity and something that I'm probably a little too soft on relative to many is even like a sense of empathy, I think, in thought. Like, I think approaching things without a baseline understanding that most humans, or a good amount of humans, are earnestly trying to think through things in a way that matters to them with some level of honesty. Because I think that kind of, I don't know, just the quickness with which people will write folks off as like idiots, even people that are kind of like ideologically aligned with them. That's the one I find really weird. Um,
Yeah.
is kind of unproductive.
Well, that's like a narcissism of small differences kind of thing, right? Like
Yeah,
like we agree on so much, so why can't you possibly agree with me, here? So
yeah.
yeah,
Um, well, I've kept you for a good amount of time. I know you have other stuff going on.
yeah.
You have a great dog with you.
I do. Yeah, he's
Um,
chewing on something behind here. I hope it's not like mic cables or something.
yeah, we're praying not. But you know, if I don't talk to you before that, early congrats. Excited about the new kid. We're
Thank
excited
you.
about the dog. And anything else you got? So we know that you have the Play-Doh video. We're excited about
Mhm,
that. I'm speaking for
mhm.
everyone here. Anything else you're working on? that you want to tease? If not, no worries.
Let's see. One day Nietzsche video will come out, but every time I give a release date to it, it gets pushed back further. It's like Half-Life 3 or something. Every time you mention it, it goes
Yeah.
later. So I'll never mention that again. I do think I am gonna do like 2 or 3 more philosophy explainers though, like long ones
Nice.
this year. That's the plan, is try to get those out a little bit more because they're so much fun. You feel so much better
Yeah.
when you're doing it. And then I've got this one video that I'm working on that I'm really excited about. That's sort of like my um imagine like last year I was doing stuff on like attention spans that
Yeah.
did really well, but that was like 12 minutes. I'm working on
Mhm.
like a 45-minute version that's like about the attention economy. And that I think will be hopefully really good. That's sort of my
I'm into
like,
it.
yeah, thinking more
Nice.
about like actually the platforms that we are operating
Mhm.
on and all of this stuff. And so I think that'll be good. And on top of that, everyone who's watching should remember that in late 2026 or early 2027, I know that's a long way away. I'm publishing my book. My book will be out. So I got to announce today that there will be a UK edition. So
Oh, hell yeah. Those
everyone
people like books.
everyone should buy my book. So yeah,
Well,
I was
whenever,
just writing a chapter today that was like about
yeah.
Henry David Thoreau and Christian asceticism and like Montaigne in the middle of this book that does not sound like it should have any of that stuff. But that's the fun thing about writing a book. You can go in weird directions and yeah.
Well, whenever that book comes out, we'll do a book party over here for you.
Okay,
When it
cool.
does come
Yes.
out, do a book tour. We'll set up a reading in LA.
I am gonna do I know I definitely will do a book tour. It's very funny though, because like my publisher is like, yeah, we're gonna set you up with like a book tour. Like we'll do it. But they're like, but you're the one who like has the online presence, so you have to do all like that work.
Mhm.
You have to get like on podcasts and go on people's on people's channels and stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay. Like I'll also make that work. But
Yeah, it's kind of what
yeah.
you do anyway, so
So
it's
there
all
will be a
good.
lot of me doing a lot of pushes for it. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, have a good rest of your day, Tom. Thanks so much for stopping by. Why did I call you Tom?
No idea, man. But
Maybe it's
it's
because
okay.
that was my dad's name, and you speak with a fatherly authority, and now you're about to be a double dad, so it makes me look to you as a father figure.
Yeah,
Um,
that could be it. Yeah.
but Jared, thank you so much for hanging out and for being my new dad.
Yeah.
We'll see you again soon, everyone. I think everyone here subscribes to your channel, but if you don't, go do it.
All right. Take care, son.
Bye, Dad. Guys, that was my dad, Jared Henderson. Being raised by him was a real privilege. I learned a lot, and I'm still learning every day. And no one buys slippers like my dad. I see someone asking about Jared's book. I think it's not out for quite some time. It's on like how to live an intellectual life, I think is the specific topic. I don't know if that's the title of the book, but I promise you that I will bug the shit out of you all as that book comes out, because we're going to want to read it. We're going to want to talk about it, all that sort of stuff. So do check that out. And, check out, if you're not already checking out Jared's stuff, you know, you probably are. So it's like, why would I even tell you about a thing that you already know exists?